Patrick.
Yeah.
We're going to go on the Patrick Terra now. And I think you do have some very opinionated views on this stuff, as we found out on Monday.
So really, Patrick, what do you think?
We thought he was this very laid back person, and we just found out differently. Okay, everybody, we should get going. It's September 18th, and it's time for Ask and Praxis, and the gang is all here, so we're happy to have us. And today we're going to talk about changes to the SharePoint editing experience. We're going to start off with the SharePoint home page changes, so that's a little bit sideways of it. And then we're going to start talking about the pages itself, which it will include co-authoring and discard changes issue, the page title and banner web part changes, toolbox view changes, suggested images change, that's part of the toolbox view, section layouts and background changes, and then finally reshaping images. And all of this, we have a lot of, maybe have some good, but we mostly have bad things to say. So hopefully we can try to keep it a little bit positive. If you also have bad feelings or good feelings or indifferent feelings, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll chat about all this as we go. All right, so let's start off, Mark. Let's start us at the SharePoint home page changes. This is where punctuation actually matters, right? Because it should be like comma or something, or
SharePoint home pages.
Changes.
So this is SharePoint home is a page that, in my experience, 99% of users don't even know exists, but Microsoft thinks is very important. You get to it when you click the word SharePoint at the top of the screen when you're in SharePoint. And they've added a new section at the top. You can see it there where it says create, share, and track your pages from one single place. And if you click the Go to Pages button, you get a new UI, which allows you to create new sites. And that's a path that you would already recognize if you created sites before. And then you can also create a blank page. And the other thing that you see on that page, that new UI, is at the bottom, you see recent pages. These are pages that I created. So they're I was the created by person. And it gives me one place to see all my pages, no matter where they are, from what I can tell, even in different sites, which is actually sort of helpful, but I'm not sure anyone was really looking for it. So what we can do from that screen is we can create a new page. When we do that, the page doesn't exist in the context of a site. It actually is created in our OneDrive. And it's stored in our OneDrive until we publish it to a site. And we don't have to ever publish it to a site if we don't choose to. The publish to the site dialog is on the right side. So when I create a page, I can polish it up and then say, okay, now it's time to put it in the sales site. And I send it off that way. Or we can just share the page from our OneDrive. And the interesting thing about all of this to me is that bottom word with the question mark, which is governance. So in theory, everyone's going to play nicely and put pages where they're supposed to go and only share pages that are relevant to the people they share it with. But I'm a little worried about things like, here's our new benefits page for HR, but it's in my OneDrive, and I open it up and share it with everybody, and people find that instead of the actual HR benefits list. So that's a little weird. We haven't really seen this play out in the wild, but I think that's my biggest concern.
I think it's going to be an education issue, because people aren't going to get it. They're not going to know what's happening. And then they're going to be like, oh, I don't know. And that person went away and now we've lost our HR benefits.
Right.
It's going to be.
And I think that when we go into clients and help them build new intranets, especially, we often find that people have shared a lot of content from their OneDrive as part of their current intranet. So people are actually diving into, like the HR VP's OneDrive to get a file.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing. And people don't really know that. And it doesn't really matter from an end user perspective unless that file is no longer available. And then people can't figure out why, because it was stored in a strange place. So
yeah, I have a client who shall not be named who has all of their client logos as OneDrive shares. It's ridiculous.
And that's not an uncommon thing. We'll always work on centralizing that stuff, but this is going to be a governance problem, I think, especially over time.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, Mark, since you wrote the blog post and this turned into like an absolutely huge discussion on LinkedIn,
so
what's going on?
Yeah, so as part of the changes to editing pages, we've gotten co-authoring, which Microsoft thinks is just fantastic. I don't know anybody out in the world who's ever asked for co-authoring, but the theory is that two people can now work on the same page, whether it's in a SharePoint site or a OneDrive site. You can work on the same page together and be making changes at the same time. Every time you put a page into edit mode right now, that little dialog box pops up, co-auth in real time. And if you click next, you get all changes automatically saved. That just pops up every single time you put a page into edit mode. Hopefully that's not going to stay forever because it's very annoying and it's right in the way of the stuff that you want to do. So when you put a page into edit mode now, it automatically creates a new version of that page. And there's no escape hatch anymore. Discard changes disappeared as part of co-authoring. I think the theory is that the versioning doesn't matter so much anymore because everyone's just going to be in this sort of free for all editing co-authoring thing. I don't know how that's going to play out. Not having discard changes is a real problem because many times, those of us who work in pages will just put a page into edit mode to see how something is configured or to tweak something and just understand what happens. And then we want to escape. We want to throw away our changes and we can't anymore. The Microsoft answer at the moment is, but you can undo, and then go back and restore the old version, which is nobody's going to do that. It's a real headache, and it still creates a new version of the page, which then throws off things like your metrics, like how many pages have we not edited in the last month? Well, or in the last 6 months, whatever. So
it does solve the so-and-so accidentally clicked the edit button and is now on vacation and has it locked for 6 months. Like
that is
it does solve that problem, and that's a real problem.
That is the only problem it solves. I mean, I actually think the fact that it would say, you know, open by Derek, and so you can't make any changes is a good thing, because then it causes me to say, hey, Derek, I see you have this page open. Can you tell me what you were working on? And hopefully you remember and you're around and all that sort of stuff.
We had this discussion. No one ever does that. They just click, click
nobody
discard
ever does
changes.
that, and we can discard changes. But frankly, if a page is sitting there open, open and locked for weeks and weeks and weeks, discard changes is the right answer, because who knows what they did, and they probably don't know either. Fair. So I guess my question, and I'm just interested in your feedback maybe in chat, is will you use this co-authoring? Is this a benefit to you? I'm trying to find people who actually think that that's great, so that I have a different perspective. You'll see my blog post is at the bottom, a link, and it's also on our references page, as well as the vote for them to do something better. So please vote if this matters to you. Sorry, I've gone on a bit. I will stop now.
No, it's all right. I think it's a really important thing that is, as I said in the chat, causes more problems than it solves, and it really needs to be reassessed, in my opinion. All right, Derek. Unless we have something in the chat, do we have a question? Nope, just commentary, it looks like. So Derek, page title and banner web part. You spent some time on this with our illustrious design Viking.
Yeah. So all right, so we've got some good and we've got some bad with the new page title. So the first thing is the page title area is now a web part. It used to be embedded and baked into the template before, and now it's not. It's a banner. It's called the banner web part, which is cool. We got the other thing is it can be deleted. So I know, it used to be that the homepage of a site never had that title on it. And if you needed to recreate that page, you had to like go in, create another site, then copy it, or do some magic thing to like get a new homepage out there without the title banner. So it's kind of cool that we can now fix that problem. You can also, because it's a web part, you can embed multiple versions of it in the page, which I don't know. I mean, Stefan and I had a lovely conversation about this the other day, because you can actually do it, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the pitfalls in a second. We also got two new header options. We got an author option and a fade option, and I'll show those in a second. And actually, we still have, this was plugged in a little while ago, but there's the option to have an optional text block above the title, so you can sort of group your content with a like header. And it is theme aware, so if you change the theme in your site, the colors, the overlays, and stuff like that sort of go with it.
Is it font aware or just theme aware?
I did not test it with custom fonts.
Oh, okay. Just curious.
So once I'm done talking, I can go test it with custom fonts.
Just curious.
And then, but that's a good question. I would argue that it may not be yet, but
Right.
it will be, because they're sort of rolling through all the font customizations in different web parts. So I don't know that it's been done yet. So.
All good, all good.
Yeah.
All right.
So here's an example of the two new template options. Author. Again, the only reason I could think about this is what, like, some kind of like CEO blog type post. Like, I don't know that I would ever want my face as the primary image on a page title or any other sort of corporate news or corporate content page. The other thing is you can change the person, so there where it says the author's name, but you can't change the image. So you couldn't, like, it's going to be your image from Active Directory. And we all know how good those pictures are.
So the
they're
whole
like
point
cut off from here to here.
But the whole point of being able to change the author's name is that you can author for someone else. So that's the point. So it's going to be your headshot, but with
No. You can do that. No, you can do that.
Oh,
it
okay.
matches
All
the
right.
person in the author field.
Oh,
not
okay.
the
I'm all right.
actual creator.
I thought you were saying
So-
it was the creator and you couldn't change
No,
it.
no,
I'm
no.
like, really?
No.
And that
So-
image is, the shape is changed. I just wanted to hold
It
that
did.
for later.
It's like a tier. I don't know what it's like a tier. But anyway, it is connected
Makes
to your
you
Active
cry.
Directory. Yeah, your Active Directory picture. The other one is the fade template. It takes the the primary theme color, and sort of like creates this gradation fade, and you can put it over an image. All right, so next one. So there are some issues here, and Stefan, if you could put in the link to your recent blog post. Stefan and I spent a lot of time talking about this. So in general, the page banners there is no H1 on the page in any SharePoint page. Instead, it's a bunch of nested divs. And to be semantically correct in your HTML, you really should have an H1. When you take the banner away, it actually pops an invisible H1 onto the page that is hidden. You can't visually see it, but it has the page title in it. Now,
That's awesome.
Yeah. The thing that really sort of, well, all right. So instead it uses ARIA roles and ARIA levels to set the HTML elements, which technically is allowed and you're able to do that and have accessible content, but that's sort of a worst case scenario. You're supposed to really build semantically correct content. And because of what's going on, it can create this really disconnected visual hierarchy. Because in general, you create headings, and the headings get smaller or change fonts or change looks to help create that visual distinction between your content. And here's an example.
Next one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is from the blog post that Microsoft posted specifically about the updates to the header. So they're suggesting that you can use multiple headers. And if you look here, at the top, I used the header, the banner web part, and I just did plain and I added a heading 2. Then I created a 3 section with an overlap, intending to use that as a heading 3 with the image, and it looks pretty, like it's visually appealing. But if what you notice here is that they're all the same font. They're the same font and the same color. So there's really no visual hierarchy in addition to the fact that they're actually not H2s and H3s.
Right.
So for someone with a screen reader, they would read heading 2, heading 3A, 3B, and 3C all the same. And
As
so
if there's no visual hierarchy. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, just for giggles, if you look at the bottom in the purple box, that is the text web part that actually has a real H2. And if you look at the little code, the code snippets to the right of each one, those are different sizes, they are different colors, and they are different line heights.
Yeah.
So they're basically not the same, even though semantically they're supposed to create and convey the exact same thing. So my general rule of thumb, and Stefan sort of called this out in his blog post, is use the banner web part for your titles, but don't use it more than once, and try not to use it for visual hierarchy like this, because it just doesn't work.
Yep. Sad.
I was saying I could see the 3 column being used because I think it is a nice differentiation from using the quick links in 3 columns. It's got a little bit more visual interest to it, but frankly, that is the only place other than the banner on the top of the page I would ever consider using it because it's too confusing.
Yeah, if you were going to use it as like you'd have your main one, and then if you wanted to use it like in place of buttons or something, or like put a little bit of text that had a hyperlink to take you somewhere, I could see it. But really, you've got to be very careful about that hierarchy, because all 3 of those would be labeled as an H2. And if they're not intended to be an H2, that's going to be an accessibility issue.
I think the other part of this is that it makes it harder to teach people how to build good pages.
Exactly.
Writing for the web is part of that, is using the formats of the web, using headers intelligently because they give you anchor links and all the things that we're always trying to do a better job at. And this just violates a whole bunch of those rules.
Yeah. And this isn't going to do any of that. So this won't give you, even though these are technically an H2, this would not give you a hyperlink that you could then link to.
Right.
So, all right. I don't want to take up everybody's time. So
bummer. Patrick, we're going to go on the Patrick tear now. And I think you do have some very opinionated views on this stuff, as we found out on Monday.
So really, Patrick, what do you think?
We thought he was this very laid back person, and we just found out differently. Patrick, go ahead. Toolbox view. What do you think of it? Do you love it?
Well, after you're assaulted with it visually, when you hit the edit button in the toolbox, automatically opens
but you can't
in your
see
face.
it. You can't see it right away because it's covered up with the "Isn't co-authoring wonderful" box. Once you close that, though.
Yes.
Sorry.
So yes, so you hit edit, which is kind of nice. I mean, it does give you quick access to some of the more used web parts and such. So you got access to your web parts, your stock images, your section templates. It does automatically open when you hit the editing page, which I find a little distracting and disturbing, but that's just me. And then you now have 3 new icons as of last week. You've got the little toolbox. You've got your sliders, which has replaced the lovely pencil that was very, ubiquitous and people understood, similar to, the search icon. Now they've replaced it with something that people may or may not understand what it does. And then the new one is we have these little sparkles at the bottom, which you think would be very fun, but it really just goes to design ideas. And there really are not that many. So the next slide, Julie.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going to talk about these a little bit. So the web parts, I mean, that's pretty basic to the way it was. You can access them the same way you did by going to the left-hand side of the section and selecting not the pencil, because that's gone there too, At least we have consistency there. You can pull up the web parts and see all your basic standard web parts. There's not really much to say about that. The next section in the toolbox is stock images. And we had a little bit of a conversation around this, more so in how they decide to place this. So if you're building a page and you're looking for a banner image, then I think this makes perfect sense. It kind of brings it front and center. Didn't necessarily feel like it needed as much emphasis. I think, Carrie, you were the one who kind of mentioned that it kind of felt like it had too much emphasis for images. But in terms of the setup of the pages, when you go to the next slide, which is really to bring us into kind of the different section layouts, it makes a lot more sense because all the section layouts that you see here are now image heavy or image based. So you have 3 columns with an image, or you got 1/3 left with an image. The ones we're normal, or the ones we're used to using, you can still get, like 1 column, 2 column, and then add your own web parts. Those are still accessed through the section on the left, so you can still get to them. Personally, I guess the issue I have is it doesn't take any thought to, as Mark was just talking about the best way to use a page. It doesn't take into account any terms of governance that we may have set up in terms of how pages look, usability in terms of how people actually look at pages, how they read pages. It provides a little too much freedom, harking back to the MySpace days, as I love to say, where you can throw an image here, throw an image there, and make things generally difficult to read and understand.
Couldn't agree more.
I think one of the things we talk about is when we talk about good content is images are great and images are really, really important to your content, but they have to be relevant. So making it so simple to drop any stock photo on the page could potentially get us in this spot where our content authors are building content to make it visually appealing, but at the same time, they're not making it relevant to the imagery isn't relevant to the content.
Yes, we say content, content, content. And it's really cool when you have those neat pictures of crayons and stuff. But if you need to find a piece of information, that's not it.
Or at least include some section templates with links, not have them all be images and text. I think that would be my wish list is, have them if you want, but at least, have some quick links or some other things that are more versatile to choose from more quickly in that toolbox.
I agree. I think that was kind of my thought around it too, Carrie. I love having more options, but I think getting rid of your basic ones or making the basic ones a little bit more difficult to kind of pick loses something. It's going to take longer to build a page than it did. So the last thing I just wanted to quickly talk about was the design ideas. So this one appeared, I think, for me last week. There aren't very many yet. So I have a feeling that this is going to be one area where it's growing. But if you add a new section, you can get new ideas for like your headline banner. So you can see here that there was 6 or 7 in there. It was actually a button that you could hit more and get more options. That was really the only one that kind of popped up at the moment. I have a feeling that quick links and some of the other web parts will probably have design ideas as well as we start to build out the MySpace. You have too much power in building your own pages, forget governance and everything else space.
Cool. Absolutely. All right, so the last area is another Stefan blog post. He's been hot on the trail of all these changes to the pages editing experience and how they are affecting accessibility, etc. So there is a new feature that allows you to reshape an image. And as of right now, when you add an image to a page, it's actually a button. Oh, thank you, Stefan. Perfect. So it's actually a button and not an actual image tag, an HTML image tag, which would be the right thing to do. So from an accessibility perspective, a screen reader would see this image of this camera and say, picture of vintage camera on white background, you are currently on a button group click this button to press, or press Control Option Space. So the user is getting a user that's using like a screen reader is getting a pretty awkward experience for images to begin with. Not the greatest thing ever. When you do the reshaping, though, it gets even a little bit worse in that you've lost any of the alt text that you added. So sorry, let me go back a second, and you can see that right in the screenshot, very small in the bottom right corner here, is the accessibility. You can add a description, and so the description was added, and I think there's ways to automate putting that description in there. Once you reshape the image, the description goes away. So that description is no longer on the image. So now you're just you're currently on a button group. To click this button, press Control Option Space, but you don't have a title of it. You don't have any description of it. So you're like, it's just like a button without a label. It's like if you went to a website as a non-visually impaired person and tried to and saw just a button with no label on it. It's like, oh, I wonder what this does. Don't press the button is the famous kids book. So this is unfortunately not very accessible, and everyone on the web should care about it. So, I think the guidance at this point is, although cool looking, maybe wait for a while to use this new resize image, reshaping images, because it is not accessible. All right. That is a lot of content. We've got a bunch of resources. Again, this slide, because I'm sharing, presented from Teams, you can click on any one of these. So we've got the a create and use modern web pages on SharePoint site. That was a Microsoft support article. The improvements to the title area from the Microsoft Community Hub.
There should be
there's an extra return in there.
Yeah.
So that's a little awkward. There's Mark's blog article, Dear Microsoft, on get the discard changes. There's the new co-authoring feature removes the discard changes. This is where you can go vote. And then we did have Stefan's blog in time for publication here to don't change the shape of the images, but that's also in the chat if you need it. So very good that we covered all of those. All right, so next session is October 2nd. We are kind of continuing along the things that we are irritated by probably a little bit. We'll try to say nice things too, though. We're going to talk about changes with SharePoint lists and library experiences. I'm sure we're going to have a lot to say. There's even some stuff to say about SharePoint framework in that one. So please join us for that on October 2nd. In the meantime, CS Live Collab Days New England registration is open. Please, if you are local to the New England area, or if you want to come into the New England area, please consider registering for that. We have lots of space for you. Please join us. I will be at TechCon 365 in Dallas mid-November. So if you're in that area, please feel free to join me. There's a discount code there. And then Mark, Derek, and Patrick will be at ESPC in Stockholm at the beginning of December. So maybe join them. Awesome. Well, it was really great to have you all. Thank you for joining us. And until October 2nd, have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us this week on Ask and Praxis. We love getting your questions or session ideas. You can submit by using the link in About. If you find this helpful, hit that like or subscribe button and share this content with your colleagues.